A bit of background about me, and so I won't seem like such a nobody. You guys can get intimate. Basically, my name is Robert, hi, as said, and basically I'll give you a little preamble. I was born and raised in northern British Columbia, and I'd always been making art, visual art, writing, and performing. So that's just always what I did. And when you're in northern BC, where it's 40 below, you go, I got to move to the big city. Is this a good? That's right. It's terrible. Okay, but you know, it's like kind of I got to move to the big city, and the next logical progression of a big city for a small town northern BC boy is Vancouver, British Columbia. That's the big city in that province in Canada. So I moved there and started going to art school. I went to a place, the Langara College, where I met some great people. This one fella, Jason McLean, and then other people through him, this guy Mark Bell, and then this other fella, Julian Lawrence. All these people that were all interconnected that I'm still friends with many, many years later. I also went to Emily Carr and got a Bachelor of Fine Arts after all that. And through this community, what there was a real drawing epicenter. In Canada, there just seemed to be a real big bunch of drawing going on. A lot of people collaborating, doing stuff, and you know, some people like that. There was like Jason McLean, me, Mark Bell, Julian Lawrence, who I formed a band with, which was called July 4th Toilet. And this was a band where no two shows were the same. We were actually named by an American. This is a record we did. This American named Greg Turkington, who also does a thing called, is involved with a thing called Neil Hamburger, amongst other things. He had a list of names. And so, you know, this was one project that kind of had to do with this sort of what was called a West Coast psychedelia movement, a Canadian West Coast psychedelia movement that was coined by Mark Bell. And so there's a whole batch of us, and no two shows were the same. People would design costumes. It was kind of very immersed in that too. So that was one of the projects. It's kind of one of the artier parts of music. So I was very involved with music. Another thing was a song and dance act called Canned Ham. And then we did a little shuffling. We're going to get together and do our Christmas show. But so there was all this going on, this real hub. And out of that actually came a book that Mark Bell put together, and you can probably find it in a lot of places. It's called Nagadod, and it's a real chronicle of all the drawing and stuff that was happening in Canada. There's just all the crazy art. It's this amazing book that he put together, and it's kind of gone the world over, and it's sort of spread its seed, as it were. But when it launched in Vancouver, nobody showed up but the artists who were in the book. Vancouver is very interested in photoconceptualism, stuff like that, whereas this thing that was kind of spreading out worldwide and getting noticed was ignored in its hometown of Vancouver. And I lived in Vancouver for a long time, 17 years, and I was getting kind of bored, frustrated. I needed a change. I didn't know what was happening with my life, and my girlfriend at the time got into law school in Toronto. I got a part in some Manson movie. I do acting as well, so in Toronto. So it's like moved up to Toronto 2 years ago. Flash forward 1 year later, girlfriend moves back to Vancouver. We break up. I stay here. I'm heartbroken, and I'm in a city called Toronto, and I'm kind of finding it stiff and awkward. I realize that there's a kind of east and west split, much like there is in America, but then there's this kind of sort of, I don't know how you describe it, a stiff conservative awkwardness at times with being in Canada. And Toronto's the kind of place you move to when you're in another part of Canada. It's kind of the end game. It's kind of, if you want a career in the arts or acting, etc., you kind of go to Toronto, and that's kind of where the glass ceiling's a few inches higher. And I'll get to that. Now, because I was finding, I like the city, there's a lot to offer, but I was going, what can I bring to the table? Because I'm finding it's not very romantic. Canada and romance don't often get talked about together. Yeah, Canadian romance, it just doesn't happen too much. And so some things I was starting to work on. One project, which I have a few pages here, and I can show them to you after, a project on love loss. Let's hear it for breakups. Pen and ink book I've been working on. That's mid-process right now. But then I got offered an art show in the middle of working on this book about love loss, which I must say is not a poison pen confessional, thank you. So I got offered this art show, and am I making sense? Is this all coherent? Okay, good. I'm trying to keep it rapid. So I decided for this art show, I realized that You know, I love making art. I find it a spiritual thing. I find making art very spiritual for me. And I also find part of making art is a real sense of communication. And because I'm finding Toronto lacking a bit in the romance, I figured I should bring the romance to Toronto. So I've been doing certain things in Toronto, performances, midnight candlelight recitations in various venues, playing ballads as a DJ, you know, doing all sorts of stuff on that end. And this art show was kind of a furthering of that. And what this art show and what I'll be showing is, it's called For the Ladies. Now, exactly. Now, the thing is, because, like I said, art to me is spiritual and it's also communication. I wanted a direct conduit. So I put it out there. I said, anyone of any gender, or even if you got a gender, who identifies as a lady, tell me what you want to see in my art, and I will make the art. So that was basically it. One of the first, I actually tried to post it to an arts posting board, and the posting board, the one only real negative reaction I got was this posting board. They got back to me and said, well, this is condescending and all this, but they couldn't articulate to me why they found it condescending, which was weird. But I had to articulate to them what I was doing, and it mellowed them out. They understood, but it was kind of confusing to me because they said it's the way, like saying the word lady. Well, any word can be said in a condescending manner. So, but that's all. I wish that they had elaborated more, because I would have liked to have known. But what I was able to do was...
made some art about it.
What's that?
You made an art project about it.
Yeah, it was never quite articulated to me, and I wanted to be articulated. Is it entomology, or is that the study of bugs? I don't know. But why? I'd like to know, because they said, why don't you call it For the Women? And I said, well, this art show is supposed to have a bit of a romantic aspect to it. I'm very into the Art Deco palette right now, particularly the dingy revival of Art Deco, decades later. But and I'm into all that, and I wanted to do something romantic, and I didn't want it to be a total gender piece. I wanted it to be wide open to anyone who identifies as a lady, and so I also was kind of tired of certain macho, things in art. Like there've been kind of like grainy Polaroids of people partying with their shirts off. And I kind of tired of that. I don't want it. I'm not a real. I know I'm a man, and I'm comfortable with that, but. I'm so comfortable with that I don't really feel an urge to make any macho art. Yeah, and I'm tired of it. I don't like macho art. I like making art that's romantic, and that's what this is all about. So, without further ado, I will show each piece. If you want to get close, you're more than welcome to. I'll hold it up and try to make sure everyone can see it, and I'll explain how they came about and what people requested. I'll do it right now. You good? Okay.